This lesson will introduce you to the imperfect tense in the Spanish language, el imperfecto. There are in fact two different past tenses. In the Spanish language, there is the preterite tense, which is often described as the simple past. It is a simple, single action in the past with a specific, defined time period. For example, I wrote the book yesterday. How many times did I write the book? Well, I wrote it once. When did I write it? Yesterday, a very specific, defined period in the past. The imperfect, on the other hand, is a repeated or habitual action in the past. It is often equivalent to times in English where we would say used to do something or was doing something. Example, I used to write books. Well, I used to write them repeatedly, ongoing. It was a habit that I used to do in the past. When did I do it? Sometime in the past. It's not a very specific time period. I was writing a book. My beginning and ending period on this are not exactly clear. I was writing a book probably when something else happened that interrupted it. So my time period is kind of hazy in I was writing a book. The imperfect tense is in fact the most regular of the verb tenses in Spanish. It is one of my favorite verb tenses because it is the easiest. There are only 3 irregulars in the entire imperfect. These are the verb ir, to go, ver, to see, and ser, to be as in a personal characteristic. All other forms are completely regular. Even if they were irregular in the present tense or a stem changer, they are going to be completely regular. This makes the imperfect a whole lot easier than that preterite tense, where you remember there were so many irregularities, stem changers, sandal verbs. The preterite tense was the one that made you want to pull your hair out. The imperfect, on the other hand, way easier. In fact, I sometimes joke that this is probably the most perfect of the tenses in Spanish, so why is it called the imperfect? Of course, that may lead to some confusion because later on, we will study a perfect tense, but that's going to come later. As a memory aid to remembering the imperfect, I recommend students remember, Maria used to be a baby. Maria used to be a baby? Why that? Well, let's look at that sentence first. We have the a baby portion of the sentence. The a baby portion is designed to remind you of the AR endings. They are aba, abas, aba, abamos, abais, and aban. Note that abamos has an accent on the first A, and abais has an accent on the second A. Note also the yo and the el, ella, and usted forms are the same. So in these cases, pronouns, yo with the aba and el with the aba ending on the verb, might be necessary for clarity. So let's use our regular verb hablar here. So to make hablar to mean I used to speak, I would take the AR ending off, just like I normally do, and I would add the aba ending in its place, and I would get hablaba. I used to speak, or I was speaking. Take the AR off, replace it with abas, and I get hablabas. You used to speak, or you were speaking. Take the AR off, replace it with aba, and now I've got hablaba. He used to speak, she used to speak, you formal used to speak, or was speaking. Take off the AR and add habamos to the end, and I get hablábamos. We used to speak, or we were speaking. Take the AR off and add habáis, and you get hablabais. Hablabais means y'all used to speak, or y'all were speaking. And then replace the AR with the aban, and we get hablaban. They used to speak, or you all formal used to speak, or were speaking. Note it also sounds a little bit like Beatty talk also. Ablaba, ablabas, ablaba, ablabamos, ablabais, ablaban, and is actually quite fun to say. Give it a spin. Have some fun saying your AR endings. But why Maria? Well, the ia in Maria, with the accent on the I, like her name ought to be spelled, tells us the ER and IR endings. Yes, you noticed that correctly. The ER and IR endings for the imperfect are the same. They are ia, ias, ia, iamos, iais, and ian. And so we will take the endings here and add them onto the end of our verb. Let's use the verb beber, to drink a beverage. Take the ER off and add the ia to the end of it, and we get bebia. I used to drink, or I was drinking. Take the ER off and add ias, and I get bebias. You used to drink, or you were drinking. And there is supposed to be an accent here on this. I accidentally left that off. Take the ER off and put the ia on the end of it. Bebia, he, she, it, or you formal used to drink or were drinking. Take the ER off and add iamos, and we get bebiamos. We used to drink or we were drinking. Take the ER off and put in iais, and we get bebiais. Y'all used to drink or y'all were drinking. Bebian, take the ER off and replace the ian on there. Bebian, they used to drink or you all were drinking. This also works for any IR verb. But why used to be? Well, the used to is to remind us that the imperfect is used for a habitual, ongoing, or repeated action in the past. It's often cases in English when we would say, I used to do something or was doing something. I used to watch a lot of television. Well, to watch television is mirar televisión. And so I used to take the AR off, replace it with the ABA for the I part, and I get miraba mucha televisión. Notice I could also go yo miraba mucha televisión. That would clarify for these ABA endings, but in this case it's probably fairly clear that I am watching television. But if there's any chance for confusion, make sure you include your personal pronouns or some other noun. Remember that the imperfect can also be used for something was going on when something else happened. I was watching television when the phone rang. Notice I was watching television in an indefined period of time when the phone ringing suddenly interrupts it. The phone ringing is going to be in your preterite tense, but the watching of the television, because it's kind of an ongoing repeated action in the past, is going to be in your imperfect. I'd use miraba televisión cuando el teléfono sonó. I was watching television when the telephone rang. Now, I mentioned there are 3 irregulars in the imperfect. The first is ir, to go. And these are the patterns for ir. Iba, ibas, iba, ibamos, ibais, iban. Notice that the yo and the usted, el, and ea forms are the same, so again, your pronouns may be necessary for clarity. But here's what's really interesting. Notice that the IR verb, ir, looks like it's using the AR endings. Well, remember we saw that before in the present tense with ir. Boy, bas, ba, vamos, ban. And that's probably because at one time there were 2 different verbs in Spanish which meant to go. One was an IR and one was an AR, and they merged together. This is again evidence that that merger took place. The other irregular, ver, to see. Veía, veías, veía, veíamos, veíais, veían. Again, the yo, usted, el, and ella forms are the same, so you'll need those pronouns again for clarity. Also notice that rather than dropping the ER like we normally would to conjugate the verb, only the R is dropped. That's what makes this irregular. The R was dropped and we added ia, ias, ia, just like we normally would. Ser is also irregular. Ser, to be as in a personal characteristic, becomes era, eras, era, éramos, erais, eran. Notice the accent on the first E in éramos. The he, she, it, and the yo forms are the same again, so we will need those pronouns for clarity. But notice what was weird about the conjugation here. Normally we drop the ER off and stick our endings onto what would be the S this time. This time we dropped the S off, we kept the ER, and we used some unique endings that look a little bit like the present tense AR endings. Why does this happen? Simply because Spanish hates us.